crime.
Potential is there for the ultimate risk of a meltdown at the 3 Mile Island atomic power plant outside Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
In the worst case, a massive amount of radioactive material would be spewed into an area 5 to 10 miles in diameter and 20 miles downwind.
The greatest crisis facing the country since the Second World War. Plus, there are conflicting reports on the quake-damaged nuclear reactors and the potential for a nuclear disaster.
Добрый вечер, товарищи.
We were recently stricken by a disaster, the Chernobyl nuclear power accident. It deeply affected the Soviet people and disturbed world opinion.
The accident, he told his countrymen, has now claimed 9 lives and injured 299 others.
Unveiling the nuclear dilemma when progress turns radioactive. Our world lies in a state of jeopardy. Climate experts suggest that our Earth will become inhabitable by the year 2050. This has led to humans looking for various sources of clean and renewable energy to save our planet. Today, we will delve into one of the most prominent of these energy sources, nuclear energy. This source of energy makes up nearly half of America's clean energy. Nevertheless, behind this flawless exterior lies a dark interior of high costs, vulnerability, and low efficiency. These dark dangers cannot be ignored. A dark past. First, we will look back in history to analyze the pressing concerns about nuclear radiation and its effect on workers. Chernobyl, one of the most infamous nuclear accident cases, occurred in the Soviet Union in modern-day Ukraine. On April 26, 1986, the fourth reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear site caused massive amounts of radioactive elements to spill into Europe. This devastated the continent for years to come. At 1:23 a.m., Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear plant explodes, sending its 1,000-ton lid flying and creating a blue beam that shoots into the sky. Just 5 minutes later, the 6th Paramilitary Fire Brigade arrives at the scene to put out the raging fires around the reactor. None of them would be alive 2 months later. In the subsequent hours, more than 200 more first responders came to the scene. 24 of these responders died within 3 months of acute radiation sickness. In the subsequent years, the Soviet Union sent more than 600,000 liquidators to the nuclear site to contain the radiation. These liquidators were firefighters, engineers, military troops, police, miners, cleaners, and medical personnel, who were all immediately sent into the area to control the fire and core meltdown. None of these liquidators had suits that could protect against the gamma rays emitted from the reactor. Data suggest that approximately 10,500 of these liquidators have died, and less than 6% who are still alive are considered healthy. While the true number of people affected by Chernobyl is still up for debate, at least 5 million citizens in the Soviet Union were medically affected as a result of the radiation at Chernobyl. Essentially, the true implications of Chernobyl's radioactive waste is almost incomprehensible. Johanna Newman, the senior director at Environment America, shares her experience with Chernobyl.
Actually, the town that I grew up in I lived in Germany until I was 7, and part of the reason why my family left Germany was because of Chernobyl. Our town was 800 miles downwind from the reactor, and public health officials warned us not to eat the vegetables in our backyard. And to this day, the boars, the wild pigs that roam in the forests in Bavaria near where I grew up, bioaccumulate the radioactive cesium and other radioactive isotopes to the point where the carcasses of the boars have to be disposed of as hazardous waste because they're so radioactive.
Burying the burden, the daunting challenges of nuclear disposal. The nuclear waste at nuclear plants is hard to contain and threatens wildlife and local communities in both the short and long term. The fuel rods of nuclear plants are mainly made of uranium. As the reactor's uranium depletes, it becomes highly radioactive. This waste is some of the most dangerous material known on Earth, remaining radioactive for tens of thousands of years. Johanna Newman explains the various dangers of this waste, including uncertain future and its dangerous transportation.
The permits. Nuclear waste is highly radioactive and poses health hazards for tens of thousands of years. When the nuclear industry was first, coming to scale, one of the conversations was, how do we label radioactive waste, recognizing that tens of thousands of years from now, when these containers are still deadly, languages like English or German may not be in use anymore. Right now, the United States already has a massive stockpile of radioactive waste. Most of it is distributed around the country, either in pools of water or in above-ground dry cask storage. And we don't have any kind of long-term permanent solution for what to do with this waste. So if the United States ever gets to the point where there's a national repository for nuclear waste, like was proposed decades ago in Nevada, which Nevadans vehemently opposed, the transport of that waste also poses huge problems. There really is no solution for the waste, and I think it's the Achilles heel of nuclear technology.
Another byproduct of nuclear energy is radioactive water produced by the plants. This water contains tritium, which when ingested, can lead to cancer. Nuclear energy companies have repeatedly tried to put profits over people and dump this radioactive water into our oceans and towns. One example is Holtec International.
Now in Massachusetts, where I live, there is an ongoing battle where the company that is decommissioning the Pilgrim nuclear power plant site wants to get a permit from the EPA to dump radioactive wastewater into Cape Cod Bay. Local community groups are totally up in arms about this, think it's a terrible idea to dump radioactive waste in the bay, but the company is still pursuing it.
Holtec has justified its actions by saying the radioactive water will go to non-detectable levels pretty quickly. But activists from Save Our Bay state that the contaminated water will inevitably flow into Plymouth, Duxbury, and Kingston Bays. The bays are semi-enclosed, and circulation currents tend to keep the water in them. It does not quickly flush out and disperse in the ocean, but is likely to end up in the sediments at the bottoms of the bays or beaches. We cannot let the devastating past of uranium and tritium waste continue into the future. Nuclear waste is a burden on efficiency and financial viability. Perhaps one of the biggest shortcomings of nuclear energy is its exceptionally high costs and low outputs. First, the average cost of electricity generated from nuclear plants is significantly higher than the competing options. In addition to low efficiency, nuclear reactor projects around the world have repeatedly had multiple delays and budget overruns. In Finland, Olkiluoto 3, a nuclear reactor, was first supposed to start operation in 2009. The plant actually first opened in 2022, with a budget overrun of $8.6 billion. In Georgia, the Vogtle nuclear plant expansion project was supposed to start generating power in 2016, yet the first of the two new reactors has just started generating electricity. The project also had a budget overrun of over $16 billion. Lastly, nuclear accidents lead to wasted capital investment. Before the Fukushima nuclear accident, Japan had 54 operating nuclear reactors. In 2022, only 10 are still in operation. This means that 44 reactors were closed because of the Fukushima nuclear accident. This comes out to more than $340 billion of wasted investments in closed reactors. Now, while nuclear energy costs have been on the rise, other renewable costs have rapidly decreased in the past decade. The cost of wind power has fallen by 71% from 2009 to 2020, and the cost of utility-scale solar has decreased by over 90%. The solution. After looking at the various risks associated with nuclear power, it's clear that it is not the solution to a clean and sustainable future. Wind, solar, and hydroelectric power are far more compelling options in contrast to nuclear energy. These technologies have high potential and low costs. America has almost unlimited solar and wind resources. If these resources were at full potential, they would have the power to meet the United States' energy demand 75 times over. Solar, wind, and hydropower will lead to decreasing costs, advancement in energy technology, and lower energy consumption, showing how America has the power to switch to zero emission.